Hi, my name is Francois, and I am a super teacher. And this is Super Teachers Unite, the show that's all about motivating, inspiring, and supporting teachers. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different. I've been invited onto the Gift of the Gab show, hosted by Murray Walton, who's also a teacher. And on the show, both me, Murray, as well as Dr. Jannie Pretorius from the University of the Free State, talk about the current state of education, what post-lockdown and post-COVID teaching will look like. And it was quite interesting to hear their thoughts and to share what I'm thinking, what teachers would need to do in the new normal, even though I hate that word with everything in me. So stay tuned, listen to what we've got to say, and we'd really like to hear your take on things in the comments down below. Just remember to like and subscribe on all the different platforms. It would be great if we can form a community of super teachers that unite under one banner so that we can make a positive difference in each and every classroom. We really need to try and stay abreast of the latest developments, start including it in our practice. And then when a crisis like this hits, I think Jannie is a great example of this. Just saying that you can continue as you have been teaching before, because you've been including online teaching long before it was necessitated to do so. And that's a big lesson that we need to learn from this going forward. Like, let's stay abreast of the latest developments and include that in our teaching so that we don't get caught with our pants down in the future.
So, do you think we'll be teaching very much differently after this? I think I asked you over Twitter, what do we kind of see teaching looking like in the next year? And I think you said very similar, but I suppose now it seems like I think we're very much going to incorporate this fourth industrial into our everyday kind of teaching and how we do things. And I might even take a lot of things firstly over MS Teams or Google Classrooms versus it being handed in to me, I think, in person or live. It might even make things easier, I guess.
Yeah, well, it definitely showed us what the online capabilities and online teaching is capable of, and we definitely saw where online teaching is going to assist teachers and make their lives easier when it comes to assessment or like submitting assignments and stuff like that. Teachers' whole frame of mind or frame of reference with regards to the old way of doing things and the possibility of doing things, they've been exposed now, things that work for you during this time, and that'll inevitably shape your teaching going into the future.
Yeah, that's true. And I know, Jannie, you're also quite big on your whole like digital learning and e-learning, I think. I remember when we were with you, I think that was very much the case of like, well, how can you take maybe your practical teaching experience in real life and put it digital or e-learning? So you're probably quite fond of, the way things are going right now.
I am, but I'm also interested in how you're handling the situation, Murray. How do you present your classes? And just tell us, I'm just interested because, I'll always want to inform my students of how things are done in real life situations. So what are you doing?
Okay, well, we personally on MS Teams, and so very quickly after that April Easter holiday, we had to very quickly learn how to use MS Teams, get all of our classes and everyone onboarded onto MS Teams. And then it basically just comes down to, okay, fine, is your whole class in MS Teams? Okay, perfect. Who's not in MS Teams? Because I suppose we've had to accommodate for those with connectivity issues or who's able to, or who's, got data issues, whatever the case is. So we've been using MS Teams as pretty much our main platform, and you probably know what Class Dojo is, I'd imagine. You familiar with? Really, so Class Dojo is pretty much almost like a WhatsApp type of application where all your parents are loaded onto Class Dojo, and you can chat to them almost in a messenger type of app. I have all 30 of my kids on Class Dojo, and I tell them, I can almost send a group message, so to speak. Hey guys, well, this activity is due for this day, and this is going to be our school outing. So we've very much been quick off the mark to do Class Dojo, to keep parents involved with, WhatsApp, SMSs. Geez, I think we've pretty much tried to do everything we can to get the same quality of schooling out that the kids are used to, or at least the parents are used to, without much of an interference. So I think we've been lucky on that front, because I think a lot of
So are you teaching, which subjects do you teach?
I'm taking natural sciences with the technology, so your whole NST subjects.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, so that's over MS Teams, and it has a lot of functionality, which is awesome. So we can upload files, you can upload videos, you can do live calls, exactly like this on Skype. You can do live calls, you can record those live calls. So there's the benefit of kids being able to go back to those recordings and see what you have done. Plus, like I said, you can put your files up there, so PDFs, Words, whatever. Yeah, I think I don't know, Francois, you might be very familiar with MS Teams and how people have been doing it these days, but I think a lot of your tweets I've seen on Google Classroom as well. So I guess we're just trying our best to use whatever platforms are available, I think. Zoom calls as well.
Yeah, so what I've seen many teachers do, the schools would recommend, or one of the leading teachers in the school would recommend a platform. And I really don't think it matters which platform you use, whether it's MS Teams, whether you're using Google Classroom, Seesaw, whatever the operating system is you use, all of the functionalities are basically the same. What's more important is how teachers are using the different platforms to teach. And I'm listening to some of the examples you're mentioning, and it sounds like there's a good balance between synchronous teaching and asynchronous teaching. And that's something that teachers don't understand generally. It's like we're so used to having the kids in our classroom and in front of us, and we're teaching in real time to them. And now suddenly our kids aren't in front of us. We don't see them live, because even if you're arranging a live meeting with the kids or a live lecture or whatever, not all of them are there. So you have to kind of repeat what you said when you do one-on-one coaching with that one, or you just send them the recording of the lecture or something like that, which is a great benefit. That's the synchronous part. While you're learning, everybody's learning in sync, learning together. But the asynchronous teaching is something that a lot of teachers had to get used to. Preparing lessons beforehand and having resources available like videos, having worksheets available or information, constructing their assessments now suddenly it's so foreign to the majority of teachers. And I think that was one of the major challenges for teachers in this time.
I think it's come down to you had to be more prepared, because you guys could easily step into a classroom today and you guys could talk about photosynthesis, respiration, chemical reactions, algebra, fractions, whatever the case is. I'm sure you guys could comfortably walk into a class and give that lesson right now. But what I've found with online teaching, and what all my colleagues, and I think a lot of teachers have found with online teaching, is that you have to be very prepared. So your content has to be there, because now you need to be sharing Word documents, PDF documents, maybe even pre-record any of your lessons. So I almost think we've had to be a lot more prepared to do this online stint of teaching than versus we could kind of walk into class, oh, I'm doing this today, I can teach. And I don't want to say this, but maybe you could be a little less prepared, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with you. And I've been thinking about that, because learners, as it is, they are really, it's very difficult to get and keep their attention. So for you to be able to keep their attention, and that's what I always share with my students. You have to have a lot of different or a variation of activities ready to stay one step ahead of boredom. So I think the online teaching thing has just intensified that.
Yeah, no, that's actually extremely true. But I don't know, because it's tough, because like, how do we stop kids from just YouTubing in the middle of your lesson, or Googling all sorts of rubbish in the middle of your lesson? Because now they're online with their devices, right? So I suppose if you are still, I don't know, I guess not presenting something of interest, or they just aren't someone who's generally interested in maths or science or English, they're probably going to very easily open up Pinterest or open up Instagram. I guess that's inevitable. You can't really stop them.
I'm wondering why is that so wrong? I mean, if you just look at the type of generation that we are in, if I'm watching Netflix, I probably have my second screen open on Twitter. It happens all the time. If I'm while we're on the call here, I've got my second screen open on Google, and I see my emails on my right hand side. I mean, it's not that I think it's good to multitask necessarily, but I don't think there's much wrong. I think we're demonizing social media, we're demonizing extra devices and kids not paying attention. The onus comes back to the teacher that if the child is not paying attention, it's a reflection on my teaching. I need to find out from these kids what are they interested in, and as I incorporate that into my lessons, that would compel them to focus, to remain part of the lesson. I want to come back to one of the points you mentioned earlier. There's this major complacency before COVID-19. I think they'll probably be going forward as well. But if you're a competent teacher and you know your subject knowledge, as you said, I can walk into a class and teach about photosynthesis with my eyes closed. But that's like one superficial element of teaching. If you get so complacent that you just rock up in class and teach unprepared, that's a very, very negative sign, because the kids in your class change every single day, every single year. You have to bring contextual information, contextual knowledge, contextual skills on a very diverse, varied way in which you're presented. And that's the way in which you're going to keep their attention.
That's actually very true. I mean, and I almost feel like maybe that happens later in your career, if you just maybe get tired or you get over it or you've been frustrated. But I suppose that's even more worrying to see if, you know, your fourth year or fifth year teacher is going into class and kind of having that type of attitude as well. Because like you said, maybe that is a little worrying and shows maybe more complacency than anything. I mean,
yeah, I want to share the story with you if you don't mind.
Of course
I do quite a lot of professional development with teachers, and at one of these big private schools, I'm not going to mention their name, but at one of their conferences, and I love what they did. They appointed a very young teacher, like 4 years of experience, to do a professional development session with other, I think it was mathematics teachers, and probably 60 other mathematics teachers in the classroom. Now imagine trying to teach your peers about teaching. You're a fourth year teacher, and you're sharing with them your practice. And after the session, during lunchtime, I sat at one table, and after I've had some lunch there, I went to have my dessert at another table. And I was listening to this one teacher. She had 10 years of experience, and she was just going off about how dare they try and teach me or put a four-year teacher in front of the class. What does she know? She can't teach me anything. That was at the one table. At the other table, I sat with a very experienced teacher. She was probably 62, 63 years old, very close to retirement, or actually over retirement. And she couldn't stop talking about how amazing the session was. She learned so much and can't wait to implement that in class. So it's not necessarily an age or an experience thing. It's a mindset thing. Here's this one teacher who doesn't really have to, or most people would excuse her for not improving her practice after 30 years in education. And she's still like, I want to improve every single day. I can learn from other people. So it's more a mindset thing towards professional development.
Yeah, that's actually very true. I mean, even when we have certain, I suppose, workshops or conferences, or people come and they show us Kagans or some type of global competencies and what you guys can do in your classrooms, there's very much the attitude of roll your eyes, I don't want to learn anything more. But at the same time, I think on the reverse of that, and I really want to bring this up, is that sometimes a lot of this information or knowledge is very theoretical, and sometimes I don't receive practical tools to use in the class. You're just telling me the theory of why it's amazing. And I mean, I think both you guys, having studied quite far into education, might be able to tell us and the viewers that are going to come sometimes why a lot of these workshops are very theoretical on Kagans and that type of stuff, and sometimes why the practical tools are sometimes left at home. Because you can tell me to do shoulder face partners, or you can tell me that it's great to have talking chips or whatever the case is, but show me how it works. Give me a physical tool. I think just sometimes don't make things as theoretical, because teaching is not theoretical. It's sometimes very practical. I have to step into a classroom of 30 learners. I want to know how I can use one of those ideas to have an amazing lesson, versus you've just come and done a 1-hour workshop on something that we might never use. So I think there's good to it, but I also think there's that side of it where I want to leave with a very practical tool and not just have a theoretical workshop from you, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I think I agree with you, because it's also my experience that when I was a teacher, presenters would simply show up and do the content dumping thing, which I think is a rather limited and brutal kind of sharing your knowledge, because teaching, as you've said, it's not about the theory, it's about doing in action, like knowing in action what to do next. But knowing that, you'll find that when you present, Francois, you can also tell me what your experience is. When you tell teachers what you want to demonstrate to them, or you want them to participate and see things in another way, or do things in another way, then I've often found them to be resistant to that. They just want to do the training and go home. They don't want to change their minds or change their attitudes or their behavior.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's quite a big part of, or segment of teachers don't really believe in professional development. I think it comes back to this mindset thing. Like, I've got my 4-year degree, now what? Many teachers have got honors degrees. Like, what are you going to teach me? The humility has gone away, and I think that's what I wanted to stress with that little story that I told. Is like, if we have the humility of knowing that I can always learn, I need to keep on improving myself. Once that mindset has been set, then it makes it a little bit easier to get people to participate. But in general, at professional development workshops, teachers are often forced to attend because it's something that the department arranged, and it's compulsory, or the principal has paid for it and they need bodies to go and represent. So you're not getting the people there that actually want the professional development. And that's what if you're a school leader, you need to go and identify those teachers that are hungry for professional development, that want to improve, and then send them on these courses. And then the other thing that I can say, what I've seen in the last 2 months with the online professional development workshops that I've been presenting, is that the teachers who sign up, because at the end of the day, they pay for it out of their own pocket. So you're not going to pay for something and not be enthusiastic when you get there or willing to learn. But then also they really want to learn and upskill themselves. You just asked a very interesting question, Murray. For the theory practice divide, I know a lot of academics specifically speak about the theory because that's where they come from. It's the research that they're embedded in, and then sometimes it's these ivory towers that we speak about, and people aren't connected to teachers on the ground. So I still believe that research is important. The theory is important. It's important that teachers understand that, but you can't only focus on that. Show them the relevance of the theory and give them something practical. So in all of the professional development workshops I've done so far, is I'm teaming up with practicing teachers, people who are actually showcasing what they are currently doing, and what I'm providing from my side is the academic support, in the sense of, the theories that come with it, but also maybe the relevance of why it's important to use a specific platform or a method.
Yeah, and I think just kind of showing teachers how you can use it as well, because we might step back into that class. Oh, this isn't applicable for maths. Yes, it is. This isn't applicable for EMS. Oh, no, wait, this is how you can do it. So very often they can come to these courses and tell you, okay, this is how you do grade 4 history or social science. This is how you do grade 5 fractions. But then you get your FET teachers who sit there and say, okay, how can I use this in physical science? How can I use this in history? You know, and sometimes they don't differentiate between the phases, and they pretty much will get kind of the whole intermediate, senior to FET phase in that one workshop. And then your kind of presenter gives a lot of examples where they say, this is how I can do grade 6 social science or fractions, and then you're the grade 10 science teacher and you kind of don't feel your relevance, I suppose, so to speak. So definitely those things are
Look,
important.
there's
And
a lot of challenges when it comes to these type of professional development workshops, and I've got a lot of empathy for the people who present this, because if you sit with an audience of FET to foundation phase teachers in front of you, I mean, how do you cover methodologies that is really specific to all of those?
yeah.
But what we shouldn't forget is that teachers are professionals. We've got degrees, we've been studying, we are professionals. So if I show a methodology for a grade 1 life skills class, you as the professional, as the teacher, as an artist, should be able to know, hey, that's something I can adapt to use in my grade 11 life sciences class, for instance. So we shouldn't be spoon feeding teachers at all. Actually, we should show them examples. We should learn from each other, and then allow us the freedom to incorporate and apply the skills like we want to.
Yeah, that's actually very true. That's probably a bit of my short-sightedness. Yeah, like you're saying, like I could take what they have said, and I should be able to implement it or incorporate it into my lessons, because they've given me, I guess, that foundation, so to speak. You're right.
But that's exactly how we're teaching our children. We're teaching our kids in exactly the same way. We're spoon feeding them and not expecting of them to apply things in their own context. So that just spills on over to the teachers as well.
And then, Jannie, what type of first year students do you get after all this nonsense? Are you still finding 19-year-olds that are very much not capable, or are they quite strong at that point?
Murray, at this stage, I only get to see them at second year level for a content module in natural science. And then when I actually get them in their third years, then they're quite capable of handling the tertiary system. So I can't complain about that. And what I try to do is I try to create a social constructivist environment where people get feedback and you build upon other people's experiences and their opinions. So I try to facilitate a discussion of students where they dig into whatever they've learned at school level, and while attending practical teaching at schools, and then get to a kind of reality that would be applicable to them. Because what I just want to refer quickly to what Francois said, and you also, Murray. I think teachers are teaching in a kind of environment created by the CAPS document, which is very limiting. And they have pay setters, and they have annual teaching plans, and they've got structured assessments and everything. So I think that's also a contributing factor of why we're struggling for them to incorporate new things. They know this week they have to do the endocrine system. They do the content dumping thing. It's a behaviorist kind of environment. And what you want to tell them about that, they know what to teach and how to teach. And if they don't do that, they'll be punished, or they'll be reprimanded, or they'll look like not capable of teaching grade 12s or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys, how much experience you guys have, say, between a private and a public schooling environment. I don't know what's your guys' opinion on kind of CAPS versus IEB, and is there higher order thinking that taught at the IEB level versus that might not get taught at a public school level, or maybe at a public school level it's only a matric thing to get higher order stuff versus, say, grade 9s already of IEB are getting kind of higher order stuff? I don't know, Francois, maybe if you can weigh in on that. Do you find there's a big difference between what we're doing with public and CAPS and how IEB and, say, a private institution is teaching their kids from a very younger age? What's your feeling there?
I don't want to generalize, because you get excellent public schools and you get atrocious private schools and vice versa.
No, true.
So it comes down to the school itself. But if you look at the major difference between a public school, I would almost say all the public schools are using the CAPS curriculum. And remember, the curriculum is only a policy document. It gives guidelines on what should be taught, and the values of the curriculum. It's the implementers, it's the teachers that have to follow through on that. Whereas with IEB or with Cambridge or some of the other independent institutions, the curriculum is maybe shaped differently, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the pedagogy of the teacher. It's about their own teaching philosophy. And unfortunately, our country is systematic issues in the fact that we're coaching for the exam. We've placed this major overemphasis on the grade 12 results because we think everybody should go to university. So we are over-focusing on assessment, and we're just coaching for the exam. That's what's happening from grade 1. We're trying to get people ready to pass grade 12. And that's not what education is supposed to be. We need to get people ready to live their lives and prosper as human beings and not just get into university.
So how would you guys get rid of maybe that old school mentality of study for the test, write the test, pass, get matric, go to university? Are we setting up our kids for failure in some sense, or are we not giving our kids enough life experience, or where do you think what do you think our flaws are, and where do you think we can improve? Like, I mean, are we kind of setting up the next generation of kids and future adults? Are we kind of doing wrong by them in some sense?
I think our current education system, it's a really poor one, but it's the only one we have. And at least it's functioning properly, at least, or that was before COVID. So, yes, we've tried the outcomes-based thing. It didn't work. So now we're in the behaviorist kind of environment, and we are just pushing people to get test scores and everything. But I don't know. Yes, I'm honest. I don't know what could work on a similar scale than our current system.
No, I agree with you. I think the education system as it is absolutely flawed, but I think that's a global challenge and not just a South African challenge. The entire education system is set up in a way to produce factory workers. Even if you just look at the way in which we set up our classrooms, it's exactly like 20th century factory style of setup. And we're not living in that world anymore. If we really want to educate somebody, just let's use the silly example. Google can teach you all the content. Everything you need to know, you can get on YouTube, you can get it on Udemy, you can get it on all of these online courses. I mean, why should I take an entire year to pass a grade when I can do a 6 weeks course on a specific module and get that over and done with and show my competence in it? And we're seeing large companies, Google, Facebook, Tesla, these guys are not even looking at your degrees or qualifications whatsoever. They want to see that you can do something. And I think that's the lack of education globally, is that we're not focusing on outputs, but skills and values are really underemphasized. And we're like so totally focused on content when you can get that content anywhere.
Well, that's true. I mean, talking about, say, Google courses there, Francois, I've personally looked into a digital marketing and a social media marketing course on Google, where it's 40 hours of, learning about website design and, putting your business online through social media and digital marketing, and they'll give me a Google certificate. Now, that's not any type of university certificate. It's not a degree from Wits, UJ, Korfsies, or UCT. But do you guys think that we are heading towards a space where that Google certificate could be quite relevant?
Do you want to get your certificate just so that you can go and brag and say, I'm Google certified? Or do you actually want to show people, look, here's the website that I built? Which one of the two is more important?
Probably building the website.
Exactly, and that's the output driven way in which society and industry is working. People are no longer, because let's just look at some of the horror stories that we saw in our own political circles the last few years. You can bullshit your way to the top. You can, because you can forge your degrees. It's simple. You can do it. But when it actually comes down to doing the work, that's more important than anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's extremely true. Like, I suppose I guess, we look at all our state-owned entities and everything that's happening around us, and we think how incompetent people are, right? And even, I guess, I don't want to get to the point where I'm, say, insulting people that are ministers of our country and in these positions, making the very important decisions that we have. But sometimes I wonder, have they ever been teachers, or have they ever been in the trenches doing hard work and then make these policies, and we wonder, well, why the hell would you make that policy? Have you ever been a teacher? Do you understand how we feeling? And I think one of the tweets that got put out was the new amended the new amended calendar, and someone had said, well, wow, how out of touch are these guys? Because our first real break comes in September, or even the 23rd of September, and we get in work to the bone, but you might not have, say, ever been a teacher or a varsity lecturer, yet you're now, I guess, let's call you the Minister of Basic Education. I guess, yeah, I don't know, like, sometimes you get appointed to positions without having gone through the real crappy work, so to speak. Which sucks, because, yeah, that amended calendar is crazy. Like, very much so.
I just want to show you something. I've been drawing the graph of the COVID infections very meticulously over the past 3 months.
Okay.
And this afternoon, I let me see if I can show it to you.
Sure.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Just flip your screen and we'll take a look.
Do you see the graph that I want to show you?
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you see the purple arrow?
Just go down a bit so we can see your actual graph. Yeah, perfect.
Yes, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's where they closed the schools, and then the red arrow is where they opened the schools.
Okay.
Like, because you're a biologist, you'll know about the J curve. They've opened the schools just in the midst of the biggest infection storm. Just when it started, they opened the schools. So I'm not sure that was the right decision.
So, but then, okay, so Jannie, then my question to you off that is, are there advisors or like specialist advisors that are telling these guys, you've just opened school at the peak of this thing? Like, why, where is that civilian advisor who is a doctorate of science, or sorry, a doctor in science, who says, guys, we can't open schools right now. We're at the peak. Like, so you sitting at home and you're making that up over the last 3 months and you're doing it for yourself. But, no one comes and says, well, hell, Mr. Pretorius, why, don't you advise us to why the hell we should be opening schools right now at the peak of this thing? I mean, I think so 38 schools have already closed since, guys? Is that correct? So, 38 schools have closed and we've barely been open.
I wasn't aware of that. Have they closed because of Corona?
I think so. I don't know, Francois, have you heard anything on that?
I'm not up to date on the latest figures on schools closing down. I have heard that some of the MECs have mentioned that there are schools. I think when they did, I think it was on Sunday that the minister had a session where they mentioned there are a few schools that have, or basically not opening because they have got staff infections. But I'm not entirely sure, like as of this moment, exactly how many schools have closed down.
Yeah.
I just think the challenge is, number one, I don't want to be the Minister of Education. I don't want to make these decisions because you can't be right. There's no way. You're gonna be wrong in so many people's eyes. The point being, to your point, Murray, is that our minister said, because they asked her, who are advising you? Who's giving us the advice that schools should open or not? And she basically said, we're taking our advice from the National Command Council on Coronavirus, so led by the Department of Health. So our Minister of Health is leading that, and they're taking the information from the World Health Organization and other experts in the field. So it's not like they're not consulting. I think the problem is that this is unprecedented. We don't know what the effect would be. Our population at the moment is the largest it's ever been. If you look at global population, it's the largest that the human species has ever been. So we've got no idea what the ramifications of this virus and the infection of it will be. The point being, and to Jannie's point, we're seeing that as you get into that highly accelerated part of the J curve, logic would dictate that by sending the kids back to school, you're increasing the risk of people being infected. But now the question now remains, and we're looking at some other research being done. Children under 9 don't really contract it as easily, and they don't infect others as easily as it would be for adults. So now the question would be, why start with grade 7 and grade 12 when you then just could have started with foundation phase? You can't be right. If you're the Minister of Education, you need to make a decision now. There's no way that you can be right whatsoever, because you're going to be proven wrong down the line anyway. The point being, you need to make a decision, and they at least did that.
I mean, that's true. No, you're 100%. They did make a decision, and like you said, I don't think any of us would want to be in that position, because it's a very hectic position. You have to try open easily 10,000 schools around the country, probably a lot more than that. And you have to reassure parents that your kids can go back to school. You have to reassure staff that they can go back to school and not feel sick. You have to put out the PPE that each one of those schools has to have so that they can open and feel safe to do so. So, yeah, I think none of us would want to be in that position to say, yeah, go ahead, it's safe, grade 7s and matrics are going to go back, you can do it. Yeah, we're in a very crazy time right now, and it's very I think, situational, and this year would have been a very normal year without COVID, so it is hectic. I know Francois was talking to off air. I was speaking to you about this off air, about that teacher and what she had said, and I know, Jannie, this is something I still remember 6 years or 7 years later after being with you, is that thoughtless moment that we say. And I don't know, Jannie, if you had read the news and seen this, that Kyalami teacher who has been suspended now because of what she said online. I don't know, it's so easy for us to say stupid stuff, and the timing for her was so bad when you look at the George Floyd situation in America. Why you had to say something that ridiculous on a live call with your learners is beyond me. Jannie, if you have heard of the story or know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, and that's what's so daunting about education, because I often got the impression while I was teaching that chaos would be just one moment away, because you'll say something or do something even in a subconscious way, and then learners will take it wrongly, and you'll be in this principal's office the next day with angry parents challenging you and whatever. So that's the moment where that's what I've talked about a few minutes ago, about knowing in action, know what to do next, and that's what we have to train amongst the teachers. They must be very conscious about what they say and what they do, and yeah.
But I think sometimes very much when we are teachers and we're standing in class, it's very easy to have a nice light-hearted conversation between our learners, and there's almost, I don't want to use the word banter here, but you get my point. There's a little bit of back and forth, and maybe the 40-minute lesson is over, and maybe we're just having a little bit of a chat session now. That is nice, I think. And I think we teachers, because we have almost an extroverted personality where we like to get energy from class and we get energy from our learners. But it's so easy to say the wrong thing to the wrong person and it's done. And I mean, you know, I think this woman has been suspended. I think that principal got removed as well. And
Well, look,
she,
it's very difficult because we don't know the context whatsoever. But there's a line of where context matters, and then there's a case like this that if it's true that she said that if you don't submit the assignment or something like that, I'm
yeah,
gonna kneel on your neck.
yeah,
I mean, in the current international global climate, you can't be saying things like that. That's way to the extreme.
true.
And also shows something. I don't know this teacher whatsoever, so I like 9 out of 10 times I take the side of the teacher because I understand the anxiety and the stresses that comes with teaching. But you know what? Once we are placed under pressure, our true personality, our true characters comes to the foreground. And if you've got a discourse of violence and you've got a discourse of what's the word? Yeah, a discourse of violence, it'll come to the fore. I know so many colleagues, and I think I've caught myself saying this so many times in front of the class. Ach man, ek sal vir jou klap, man. I mean, that's actually such a violent discourse if we think about it. It doesn't come from humility. It doesn't come from kindness. It comes from a very dark place. If that's our way in which we want to control our chaos, it's not a very healthy way of doing that. But saying something as insensitive as this, whether it's in jest or not, was a major mistake for this teacher.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. But then I actually now want to follow up with a nice question, Francois, and even for both of you, is that what type of screening do you think we should be doing for teachers? Should we have any criminal record background? Should we have hardcore psychological screening? Because, and this is something I actually discussed today with my colleagues, is that we have no idea who we are putting in front of classrooms, and we don't know what type of history you have. So what do you guys think? Should we be taking even stricter measures towards screening criminal record backgrounds? Should you maybe once a year even have a criminal record check? Should we be having like just crazy screening procedures for education, since, you know, we're dealing with the youth of tomorrow every single day?
Yes, I'll come in there. I think we should have, because especially now at the Kofsis, we have more than enough students like wanting to be teachers, and they apply for the available positions at the Faculty of Education. So I think at the moment maybe only an academic criteria we decide on that, but I do believe it could be very fruitful to include some hardcore psychological tests and stuff. So we get like, then we can also get a more innovative teacher in front of a classroom after we're done training them.
I think it's not necessarily a matter of screening, Murray. If we just look, SACE has now implemented the police clearance, that you need to have a police clearance before you can get your SACE accreditation. And there's a lot of challenges around that. I know of teachers who can't get their police clearance because they owe somebody, I think, 50 Rand, or they stole like 50 Rand or something like that. And then you get teachers who have committed murders that's still in the classroom. I mean, who's going to be the judge and jury on that, and saying that, you know what, this one person made a blunder in their life versus this person is an active threat to the children in the classroom? And that's not a decision that I would like to make. But I think it comes back to the selection criteria of universities. If we look at a study that's been released, the Teaching and Learning International Survey was released 2017, I think, or 2018, I can't remember. They asked South African teachers, they asked them, was teaching your first choice? Was it your first choice of career? And from that sample, only 50% said teaching was my first choice. And I think that is a major challenge for us. Teaching isn't a profession that's seen as this glamorous profession. People don't generally want to teach. They typically end up in teaching. And that's very problematic. If you sit with people who become teachers because they couldn't go and study something else, they didn't have access to other university degrees, or people told me I should have a degree and now teaching is the easiest degree to get, then you end up with people becoming teachers who don't really want to be teachers. And there, I think, is a lot of the societal issues that creeps in within education.
Yeah, I mean, because that's true. So you can obviously do your 4 years at B.Ed and you chose to get into education, or you can get into your PGCE, your NGOS, and do it over 1 year quite quickly. But that NGOS is also really important because I think we get a lot of specialist teachers. I took accounting, I can teach it now very proficiently, or I did come from a BSc background. I can teach, your biosciences, etc., very proficiently. And yeah, I guess what you're saying, like, it's sad that maybe you didn't firstly choose education, so maybe you're not going to give it your whole heart, I suppose, so to speak. But I guess maybe some of those cases in the PGCE courses, you could almost learn to love teaching versus it being a first passion, I suppose, so to speak. And I don't know, Jannie, maybe you've come across a lot of guys that initially didn't want to do teaching, but they love it after leaving. It's probably quite a mixed, it's, it's going to be a 50-50, so to speak.
Yes, and I think, yes, maybe I think it's always been like that because in the old days, we also had that in our, like we had HDE classes after we done our BSc, the current NGOS or PGCE. And you'll find a lot of unmotivated students there. They just want to do the diploma and get to the school and get a salary. So, yeah, it's a very difficult situation. And yes, I think we should have more strict measures to select better students.
But at the same time, there's very lucrative things like your Funza Lusaka bursary, right? I get a bursary if I teach, or, I apply for it. I can, get a job with experience as soon as I finish if they place me. So, kind of who are we to hold you back of possibly receiving free tertiary education through a bursary like that because you chose to teach, I guess.
But you should remember why Funza Lushaka was created. It's to identify the areas of need within education. For a long time, we did not have enough science and mathematics teachers. For a long time, we did not have enough foundation phase teachers. So these bursary schemes get created to basically fill the holes wherever there are gaps. When you apply for a Funza Lushaka bursary, yes, they do pay for your tuition, but you basically go into science because that's where the gap is. You go into math because that's where the gap is. But I think it's a bigger problem in the sense that we're placing this focus in society on you need to have a degree in order to be successful. The generation above ours, they are very focused on prestige, and very focused on you need to have a degree because that's something we couldn't achieve. That's something that people that prosper have got degrees. And that's not the case anymore. And we should take that focus away. The majority of people in our society should not go to university. They should instead go and follow their passion, go and follow the things that they are interested in, and go earn a living and be much more happy than just getting a degree for degree's sake.
I think going back to what you had said about the Google Classrooms and that type of, it almost sounds like picking up a piece of paper that makes you qualified to do a job. That seems to be very important still in society. So, I'm not going to get hired anywhere if I firstly don't have my PGCE with a SACE certificate, or you can't work at PwC, Ernst & Young, and those places if you have not received a BCom, I suppose, accounting. So I guess maybe one of those situations where it's easier said than done, because you, I think, often can't work anywhere if you're not holding that qualification, though. And I don't know if you see that changing kind of anytime soon, though. Like, what, the next decade? Probably not still. I don't think so.
It's going to take time. It's going to take time, but we can't be perpetuating this. And I think our youth is really showing this. Students in general, I think, are realizing, you know what, now I'm getting a degree, maybe not in teaching. Let's say you get a degree, a BCom, or especially if you're going to do a BCom in marketing or something like that. When you step out with your degree, it doesn't give you an advantage above somebody that doesn't have a degree but can actually operate. And as soon as the youth starts realizing that, you know what, this degree of mine isn't giving me the leg up that I was promised, then that's going to be perpetuated into their children, and they're going to say, you know what, you don't need to go to university. So I'm saying probably 2 or 3 generations from now, the education landscape will look much different.
I wanna get your guys' opinions on something quickly, because this is something that's also been brought up a lot, and I can hear the firstly frustration, but also the relevance it has in my colleagues who've done it and those who have not done it. What do you guys think about first year teachers and almost doing a ComServe year at a public school versus your first job's a private school, and you never know what it is like to work through a public school system? So our first year teachers for 1 or 2 years almost do their ComServe year like your doctors and etc. do, where they have to go work in a public school, maybe just get that experience of what that is like, versus your very first job is an independent school of only 20 in the classroom. Do you guys see any relevance in that? Do you see maybe any usefulness in that type of making our first year teachers do something like that? What's your guys' feelings there?
So do you think that they should first go on a ComServe year and then start their studies, Murray? Is that what you mean?
No, so when you pick up your B.Ed or your PGCE, your first job almost has to be at a public school or a government school, versus my very first job might immediately be a private school where things are quite nice and comfortable. Because it seems like people can go work first years at private schools and independent schools and have a very cushy time, and then they can still complain about not having X, Y, or Z. And you can come from a public school background and know what like almost true hardship is, I guess, so to speak. So it's almost like if our first year teachers, they had a Zuma year or they get a ComServe year to really kind of learn and adapt and get experience, over my first job is at an independent school. Yeah. So almost if teachers had to do a ComServe year like your doctors do, or your dentists do, or your occupational therapists have to do, where they get to go work in public hospitals. I don't know, is that something you feel is fair? Should we do it? Should we not do it?
You know, I've been thinking, because it's a very interesting question. I think because on our third years, they leave for schools for about 3 months during their third year, and similarly in their fourth year. So I have been exposed to quite a number of teaching environments, but in the same breath, my daughter she's just stopped studying in 2015, I think, 16. And then she got to a public school where things were really, really, really demanding. And the environment was very disruptive and everything. So she has experienced that. And then she went to an X-Model C school where the environment is quite more conducive to teaching and learning. But now she's very thankful for everything that she gets. So I think it could be a useful thing to ask teachers to first go to teach in a public school, and then you can find another job for yourself.
And you, Francois?
Yeah, I disagree. No, I disagree. I don't think our teachers should do a ComServe year or a Zuma year. I do think, though, that our initial teacher education, because currently we've got the work integrated learning component of your teaching, and this is what Jannie referred to, the 3 months that you teach in your third year or 3 months that you teach in your fourth year. What the policy says is if you're a student teacher, you have to have a minimum of 22 weeks of a work integrated learning experience. And that takes the shape of doing school prac at a school, community service, or community service, service learning, and so forth. So you need to be mentored as a student teacher. And I'm very, very passionate about this. I've actually created an online platform called World Tracker, WILtracker.com. which is an online platform where student teachers and mentor teachers can meet up and assist each other. Because I think that's the problem. Even if you were to take a Zoomer here or a ComServe here and go and teach in a public school versus a private school, there's no guarantee that you're going to be inducted properly. There's no guarantee that you're going to be mentored properly. So if we can use our 4 years of initial teacher education, and we can streamline and support our mentor teachers and our student teacher interaction, that's going to be a lot more beneficial than if once you have your degree, I'm saying let's open it up to the free market. Let people go and teach where they get accepted. I wouldn't want to interfere in that. It's like expecting an accountant to go and work for a governmental institution before they can go and work in the private sector. I'm not a fan of that whatsoever, and I'd much rather let the free market take its reign there.
But then, can I ask, why do we expect it from our doctors and our occupational therapists, though?
Exactly. I don't agree with that either.
Because, as soon as you graduate, after a long 7 years, right, of becoming a doctor and cutting open cadavers, etc., they send you all the way out into the lullies to some very much underfunded hospital where you might be a doctor that's got to spend 24, 36 hours on shift, and that you have to do, I think, for a full 2 years before then you can go kind of look for work elsewhere.
But remember, that's not the only case. There are also doctors who go and do their Zoomer here at very prestigious institutions. So it's not that they have to go and do it at a public institution, which is fine. But I still don't like that idea. I'd much rather that while the student is getting qualified, give them the best possible mentorship, and then secondly, expose them to the different kinds of environments. And that's currently what the policy is saying. Your student teachers, when they go out on their work integrated learning, should get a wide variety of going to a township school, a rural school, an inner city school, X-Model C school, an LSEN school. But in practice, this isn't currently what's happening. And that's why I've started World Tracker.
Okay, so you think it comes down to rather the mentorship that you receive versus where you are sent.
Yeah.
So it can be, maybe if I just use the Bloemfontein examples here, it can be a Heidedal, it can be a Unici, or it can be a Grey, or even I think it's JBM Herzog. It doesn't matter in which one of those schools you attend, as long as the mentorship you receive at that school is sound and proper, and someone really, I guess, sets you on your way, so to speak.
Yeah, I do like a rotationary based internship program more than the more contact initial teacher education. So internships of teachers, I think, is going to be a bigger practice going forward.
Okay, so, and I mean, I know already teachers do internships at certain schools now, and that, that comes with maybe any type of internship where you might, I don't know how it really works. Are you given crappy work? Are you paid an internship type of salary? And then do you feel it's viable for you? I haven't personal experience once, so I can't say. But just to close off, our private versus public schooling during COVID. So private school learners might have had a great advantage because of being able to pick up work online. Do you guys think this is fair? And then what has government really put in place for learners from rural areas to help them access work? And then it's not really their fault if they're not as privileged as someone who's attending a private school. So I guess, are we going to get like 20% of the country going forward quite well prepared, and we're going to get 80% of the country who's going to be very much lagging and behind? What is the next year and a half or even 2 years looking for in South Africa when you think many people have been on MS Teams and a lot of people just have received nothing for 9 weeks? And it's just not even due to their fault. It's just circumstances.
Yeah, so we call this the digital divide, and it's really a major challenge in our country. Remember, it's not only the private schools that could have continued online. We've got many X-Model C schools because of the school fees that the parents pay, and the socioeconomic background of these learners and the families, it was possible for these kids to receive still online teaching. But I agree with you. There's this thing that the kids who did receive some form of education the last 3 months have got an advantage above the kids who didn't. And that's going to be perpetuated going forward. And I think that's a major challenge, and it definitely is unfair. What has government put in place? They have put in some programs. They definitely want to reach out on radio programs, TV programs, creating these support programs for content. But unfortunately, it's still not going to reach everyone. And this is, I think, I'm agreeing with our Minister of Education and the fact that we need to get the kids back in schools in a face-to-face modality, because then we can ensure at least that some form of schooling is occurring.
Yeah, and I think that's why there has been, the hectic push to get us back to school and get your PPEs in order, because we have, I think, such a large percentage of learners not really receiving anything right now. I don't know, Jannie, what's your feeling there? You're obviously more tertiary based. And you probably have quite a mixed bag of privileged to maybe underprivileged students, but you've got your Blackboard system in place, so maybe you guys haven't struggled as much?
No, what the university has been doing, they really put a great effort into ensuring that every student, no student is left behind, because they've been identifying students and assisting them in getting the data. And I think they are like handing out 3,500 laptops to students that are struggling. So I think in that way it was important boost in our ability to cater for all the students. But when it comes to schools, I've been amused by the fact that suddenly when schools needed water, government was able to provide them with water tanks, most of the schools. So if it gets to that, I think government is quite able to do whatever is needed to fix our system. The question is just, is there enough capacity? The motivation to get to schools and make sure everybody's got what's needed, is it there? That's what I want to ask.
Yeah, and like you said, so they're getting water tanks kind of now in this period of time. But I bet you 6 months ago, even a year ago, if they asked for the same water tanks, it doesn't seem as if they were likely to receive them, I suppose. And we even see these things kind of before elections, and when things get very close to that 3.5 mark, when it gets closer to elections. Now your feed-in schemes happen. Now they fix your RDP houses. Now whatever, all your rural ablutions and stuff all get fixed up, and all these amenities that we're so used to get almost, I suppose, attended to when it's important, versus the rest of the time it doesn't get dealt with, which is sad, I suppose. Yeah, which is tough. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the next, how long do you guys see this taking place for? Are we still very much going to enter next year dealing with COVID, dealing with PPEs at school, keeping our 1 meter distance, teaching with masks on? Are we pretty much, do we need to get ready for the long haul here?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is going to be with us for the next 12 months to 18 months. But I actually think culturally it's going to be something that's just going to become more and more acceptable, people wearing masks. I don't think it's really going to go away.
We've got one comment here. They said that SAB got beer to all 9 provinces 1 week, so it seems you need to ask the right people.
I love that comment. It is a bit unfair though. I love that, but remember, it's SAB is a privately run company, and they've got a vested interest in selling the product. It's not exactly the same. It's not like for like with education.
Yeah.
But I maybe we should get the SAB guys who do their logistics in to do the Department of Education's logistics. I can see that happening.
Yeah, kind of maybe what Jannie's saying is, if there's a will, there's a way, or if you have the intention to do it or want to do it, you will get it done. Versus it seems a lot of the time we don't, things that we want to get done, they just don't get done because it's not necessary at that point. Are there any projects or anything you guys are working on personally that you can take this time to brag about, advertise yourselves? Is there cool projects we're on, guys? E-learning stuff, digital stuff, platforms. Jannie, anything from your side? Do you have any cool honors and masters projects taken on right now?
I've got two things in the future. The first thing is I'll be waiting for you to come to me and see me about postgraduate studies.
Okay. All right.
That's how you know a true academic.
Yeah.
They get their postgraduate students whenever they can.
All right. Cool.
I'd love for you to come and see me, and we can write this whole experience of COVID down and see why we can't write an article about it.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the other thing which I'm quite proud about is me and two other colleagues at the university, we've written an article about the use of humor in science teaching.
Okay.
So what I did was I presented a lecture to the students in which I've tried to be humorous and funny. I don't want to use the word funny because it can mean other things as well.
Yeah.
But then we recorded how many times they've laughed, and we did a survey of what they've learned from that and whether they would use humor in their science classrooms. And then it was accepted by the European Journal of Humor Research.
So where could we find that? Do you guys have it published anywhere? Could we read up on this somewhere?
I've just sent the final version of the article, so it should be published within a month or so, somewhere in June.
Okay, well, definitely keep us, I think, posted on that, because, I'm working in my science department, and I know I want to share that with my colleagues. And, your guys' research now is going to enable us to possibly, use jokes or humor in our classrooms, and how can we engage with our learners on a different level. So I think that sounds super interesting. And you, Francois, projects, anything happening on the go right now?
First of all, I just want to say, Jannie, that's an amazing topic for an academic paper. I can't wait to read that one as soon as it's released. That's so in my ballpark. I love the fact that you guys researched that. That's amazing. But Murray, I'm not going to plug too much of me. I've already plugged worldtracker.com, so I'm not going to say much more about that. But what I have done, I've created a WhatsApp service for teachers. So if a teacher needs support, if you have a question, if you need need to vent, send me a voice note or something like that, you're more than welcome. I'm going to give you the WhatsApp number. It's +27 63 681 6410. Just going to repeat that. It's +27 63 681.
Wait. I just want to find a piece of paper, Francois. +27.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm going to say again. It's +27.
Yes.
63
681
6410.
6410.
So it's a WhatsApp service. It's not a WhatsApp group, because nobody needs more WhatsApp groups in their lives.
No.
It's a direct service. If you have any challenges in education whatsoever, that comes through directly to me. And as soon as I get the opportunity to respond to teachers, I absolutely do that. And it's a free service. You never need to pay for anything there. It's just my way of trying to assist teachers with individual challenges.
Now, Francois, I wish you got to see what I saw, and maybe you're looking at the Skype chat. But I think as you were, putting that number down, Jannie's looking around frantically. I need this number. I got to take it down. Where can I get it? Perfect. So everyone is keen on tools like that, and I think groups like that, so we can all get help from each other, because that's what we need right now, I think, is to help each other, to have each other's backs. How can I learn from you? How can you learn from me? We need to share ideas. We need to, I think, just better ourselves and try better each other, so that we can put out the best work we can, so that we can help the kids and even students in front of us, because that's essentially why we teach. We're passionate. We want to do this. We want to better those that are in front of us. So I think that type of service is fantastic. I think I'm going to take the number down myself and share it with my colleagues, and then if they are in trouble, in despair, need some type of advice, I think they should definitely get hold of you. That sounds fantastic. We need that type of services. Is there anything else like that running, Francois? Are you pretty much the only one doing that right now? Do you know of other platforms that even offer that type of service?
Not text wise, not like this WhatsApp service of mine is quite unique, I think, in education in general. It's just an outflow of my passion for teachers. I mean, it's quite cumbersome. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it'll probably grow to such a place that it's unsustainable for me. That I'll have to get a team to assist. But it's small enough. While I can do it, I'm doing it. So there isn't any other text-based services like that. But I'm dealing with a lot of other people who are as passionate as I am, and even more passionate as I am about education. And we're forming collaborations right across the board to assist teachers, because I agree with you. We need to start collaborating more, and not just talk about collaborating, but like collaborating and forming solutions within education together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's very important. So, Jannie, we are waiting for your article on humor in science. I think that's extremely important. And yeah, I think, Francois, we're going to share that number around kind of as many groups as we're having, to as many colleagues as we have, principals, deputies, administrative staff. You know, I think you probably are quite open to taking whoever in education is willing to pick your brain. But guys, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate both of you coming on. I think it's been super informative what we've discussed, where we've chatted about education and COVID. You know, it's been definitely a roller coaster ride for all of us in whatever kind of aspect of education you are in. So I do thank both of you so much for joining me this evening. It's been very insightful.
Thanks, Murray. It was great being on your show, man.
Yes, really an honor for me, Murray, and very nice to connect with you again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you both enjoy the rest of the evening. Have a great weekend. I think it's going to be a cold one, especially I think, Jannie, you live in Bloemfontein, so very cold.
Yeah.
Guys, dress warmly. Please wear all your long johns and 5 pairs of socks if that's the case. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Murray. Go well.
Cool.
Thanks, Jannie.
Bye.